My name is Jesse Griffiths. I'm the chef and co-owner at Dine. I'm the head instructor at the New School of Traditional Cookery, and we are now at Dine on the east side in Austin. We had a feral hog butchery class, 3-hour class. Try to get through 3 animals usually. Only made it through 2 because I guess I was talkative. Just trying to break down wild pigs into kind of a more digestible, I mean that metaphorically, way to understand them and approach. And it's a standard class that we've been doing for years now. I was born and raised in Denton, which is North Texas, north of Fort Worth and Dallas, and I grew up fishing with a big fishing family. I did not hunt though. I was just always really curious about hunting very much. I love to be in the outdoors and kind of picked it up when I was around 30 actually. Started hunting and obviously was taken to it. Kind of lucked into this industry or not lucked. When I was in high school, I like to work a lot, and so I started working in restaurants. I worked in 3 restaurants at the same time. I worked constantly, and I liked having the money, and I guess I liked the culture of it. I started out bussing and washing dishes, and then started waiting tables and bartending, and eventually found my home in the back of the house in the kitchen. Now it's probably around age 20, and just never looked back. I've just been doing it my whole life. I love it. I love cooking. And food and hospitality. Dine started as an idea a long time ago. It started off as a supper club, which is now known as a pop-up. I think we did 13 people for our first dinner, and really was just wanting to kind of push the envelope of what it meant to only use local ingredients. And in Texas at the time, in 2006, it was a lot more difficult than it is now. Going to the farmers markets, which were very limited at the time, and buying whatever we could and trying to piece meals together. And it's since gotten so much easier, and it's just amazing to see how it's grown. But that was kind of the genesis of it, was just trying to an experiment about what you could do with food that was just from here, and it's based on the notion that every other place in the world functioned on that. If you go to France or Vietnam or Morocco or India or Korea, it's like everybody there for centuries was making food with what they had, and it drove that food culture based on what they had as a resource, and it really defined the way that they prepared food. And I was like, what would happen if we tried to do that in Texas, but only using these ingredients, but we have the luxury of using ideas from around the world. But I mean, farm to table is just like one of the oldest notions in the world. Eating foods that are like present in your region is an ancient idea. But in the United States, especially at the time, it was a bit novel. And so I think people took a lot of notice, and it's a very fun challenge because we limit ourselves voluntarily. We don't have lemons or, certain things like out of season. We just don't have them. And so, but what we do have, we make the most of it. We started the New School of Traditional Cookery a couple years after we started the business, so around 2008. And I've always really enjoyed the educational aspect of it. And as I started to hunt, combined with my background in butchery, we started to do classes on that. I realized I could combine the two, like hunting and butchery and cooking. And so we started that, and it was a big success from the beginning. And it really drew in a lot of people, and I found that was really my dream job. Like, that's a cool job. I get to go hunt with people. A lot of them are first-time hunters, and then teach them how to butcher and cook animals, and be outside for 4 or 5 days at a time. So it's pretty cool. I can still remember what it was like for new hunters, and I really prefer bringing in new hunters or people that never had that opportunity before. I think is really important, and even if it's only once, it's really cool to get them out there and let them have that experience. I wrote the first book, it seems like a long time now. That came out in 2012, but since that came out, and since we have been doing so many classes, really the elephant in the room in Texas is the feral hog. And so it's like over and over and over, people would ask questions about it, like, hey, what do I do? Or you would hear something about them that was just not right. And I realized that not only is there a lot of misinformation or questions out there, a lot of mystery surrounding this animal, but it's a super valuable resource. It's very accessible. If you're a hunter in the state, you probably have your best chance at hunting hogs. So it's a good gateway, and it's invasive. I mean, there's so many reasons, and in my mind, pretty delicious. But there was, like I said, a lot of mythology and disinformation about how it's not good. And so over the years, we would hear all these questions or statements about it and kind of compiled those. And so really, the book wasn't so much written by me, but just like I answered 1,000 questions that I'd already heard. And I knew that the need was out there. And, I looked around and it's like nobody had really addressed that topic. And we were like, let's talk about it and let's write the book about it. Let's get in there and cover it from start to finish and just try to demystify it in a way that was approachable, because it's not an easy topic cooking wise or in any way. It's a pretty nuanced subject, the feral hog, but cooking them can be difficult, and I think that's where most people got hung up. And so what we did over time was just devise an approach, like a really simple approach to it, where we kind of just like, hey, listen, is it this big or this big, or has these qualities, then you can do this. I'm trying to break it down without getting too technical and too fancy, and I think it appealed to people. Well, if you're not familiar with feral hogs, there's a good chance that you will be in your lifetime. You're seeing more and more where they're spreading to. There's a new southward migration from Canada of feral hogs coming from Canada to the United States. And what a clever, interesting survivor of an animal. They eat just about anything, and they can absolutely devastate their surroundings, whatever that may be. If it's a watershed, if it's agriculture, if it's a golf course, if it's a front yard, they can get in there and they can really mess a lot of things up. They're very effective eaters. They're very smart and they're adaptive, and they know where to be and stay the safest. So they're a very good adversary. I don't know if good is the right word, but they're keen adversary. And so they're just very good at surviving, and the way they survive is just destructive to the way that we want to grow food or develop or have unblemished properties, stuff like that. So a hog represents a pretty crazy animal in that it is so destructive and it's so good at what it does, and it's hard to get in front of, and we haven't done that very well. We brought them here in the 1500s. They're not native to this continent, so they are an invasive that European humans brought over here, and now we're kind of reaping the seeds of that planting from 500 years ago, and it's just going to get, unfortunately, worse. And I think that our objective is not to say that we're going to eat our way out of this situation, but rather we're going to offer advice for anybody who wants to eat a pig that they've killed. I'm supportive of killing pigs, and then if you want to eat them, then hey, I've got a book for you, without any criticism or judgment of the way that the land here is structured. I will say that it, better or worse, it did kind of create a perfect storm for hogs. And then we're seeing some other exotics too, like the Axis and Aoudad, which are starting to kind of thrive and spread their ranges. And unless we get really creative about it, I think that we're going to see some more serious invasive problems. But I think that we're, as a state and as a culture, we're going to get in front of it in a good way. I appreciate overall how the land is stewarded here, and I think that if we can be clever and kind of focus on a more altruistic outcome, thinking statewide rather than our own properties, then we can beat it, or at least manage it, maybe. But there's also a lot of good information. I think that people they can come across information about where their food comes from what it takes to get something from a farm or from a ranch or from the wild or something into their home or to a restaurant. I think that they just have a much easier channel to absorb that information now. And I think that's what's really changed everything, is that people look at a factory farm meat situation, they're like, whoa, I didn't know that it was like that. Or conversely, you could have an urban city dweller that was just like, hunting is stupid and bad. And then one day they're like, oh wait, maybe they heard a podcast or they realized that so much conservation happens because of hunters. And then all of a sudden they realize something more about their food, or that, animals die to get on their plate, and that it can either come from a store or it can come from here. Older people in our society can probably still remember when food came from a source that they knew personally, or their grandmother was making pickles, or as a family they were slaughtering a pig, or they hunted or something like that, having a direct connection with food. And so I think that they still remember, and then I think that younger people are now looking back on that and seeing that connectivity as a real positive. The 3-hour day class is just meant to break down a couple, 2 to 3 hogs in their entirety, and be very flexible too. I like to really just kind of respond to what everybody's there to learn. It's like, oh hey, I would really like to learn about sausage or cutting chops, or I'm obsessed with ribs. We can really go in those directions. And so just taking those pigs, kind of analyzing them for their size and how big they are, and being like, hey, this is what I would do with this pig specifically, and then applying that. People leave the class and they're like, I can't wait to go kill a pig. And I'm like, that's the highest compliment you could get after that, is be like, yeah, go out there and do it. And if you have the confidence after that, even to just try it, worst mistake you can make is sausage, right? So you just get out there and just give it a shot. I just want to do the things that I really love. And I think that everybody deserves a chance to go out and be in the woods and hunt, experience that once. And I would like to make that easier for people. I love the restaurant. The restaurant's kind of humming along right now. But I really like being outside. I also love writing books. So I won't say anything else, but I like writing books. There might be another one coming, maybe a couple more. But I enjoy that. I think it's a medium that I feel very comfortable in. I love sitting there with someone when that deer or that pig walks out for the first time, and it's like I'm telling them to calm down, and I'm the one that's freaking out. It happened to me a week ago, and I've been doing it for years now, and I'm just like, my heart's just beating, and I'm just like, you need to breathe. And it's just, I love it. I really love it. And then to see, put their hands on an animal for the first time and know that they're going to take that food home to their families and fill their freezer up. It's like, it's good work.